المجلس العالمي للمؤسسات المبتكرة مجلس فريد من نوعه يمثل مؤسسات عالمية من مختلف قارات العالم. هذه المؤسسات مختصة بالابتكار وبدعم الابتكار وبتعزيز ثقافة الابتكار في المؤسسات وفي الجهات الموجودة في مختلف هذه الدول. المجلس بيكون له دور كبير في دعم تبادل ونقل المعرفة ونقل الابتكارات الموجودة في مختلف قارات العالم ومختلف المؤسسات الموجودة على مستوى العالم، ودعمها وتأثيرها ونقلها للمؤسسات الموجودة سواء في دبي وفي دولة الإمارات أو على مستوى الدول المشاركة في هذا المجلس. برنامج دبي
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome. My name is Hitendra Patel. Welcome. My name is Hitendra Patel, and I am one of the founders of the Global Council for Innovative Organizations. Every month, we have a speaker who comes to talk about innovation, frameworks, and new ways to think about innovation that we can all learn from. The GCIO was basically put together by the Dubai Government Excellence Program, Global Innovation Management Institute, along with 4 founding members. And every month we bring a speaker to talk about these topics. Our guest today, Tor Andreassen, is being brought in by our partner on Open Innovation of Norway. And I'm going to let Truls Berg introduce them. Truls, welcome, and please introduce Tor to the event.
Thank you very much, HP, and good afternoon, everyone. Or I do know that it's good afternoon for some and good morning for some, but that's the story when we have a global association such as this. But it's an honor to introduce Tor. You probably don't know him as well as I do. So Tor Andreassen is Norway's by far most well-known professor in innovation. He's also an honorary visiting professor at the Cambridge, University of Cambridge in UK, and he's been a visiting professor at Stanford and at several other universities all around the world. However, we are especially fond of Tor because he's also heading up our advisory faculty at the Open Innovation Lab of Norway. And in addition to that, he's also written several books about innovation and how to really get to the real value of innovation. And in Tor's opinion, that really is when the customers are experiencing the value. So one of those things I hope that we can all learn from Tor's speech today is this: when and how do we measure the value of innovation? So I think without much further ado, HP, I would just like to say that the one I'm looking forward to hear more from now is not me and not Open Innovation Lab per se today, but it's from Tor, and it's a real pleasure to introduce you, Tor, and say it's all yours. So take it away. And I think everyone can see some of those things that you have been including the Vanderbilt and all of those other things. We could really talk for a long time about that. But Tor's books in Norwegian has been very popular among a lot of innovation practices as well. So Tor, it's all yours. I look forward to listening and really appreciate also this opportunity to meet in Barcelona in 1 month's time.
Thank you so much, Truls, for your kind words. It's like I want you to say more because it's joyful to listen to. So so don't stop. No. In all honesty, I'm also truly honored by this opportunity to share some of my thinking on this topic that we all find extremely fascinating, and also we see in business, of course, we're getting more and more attention around the phenomena innovation. So not only just running the company efficiently, but also setting it up for the future. So I titled my talk here for the next 30 minutes on why and how to capture customers' voice in innovation, because it's not obvious to everybody why we should bother listening to customers. As a business school professor, I always find it fascinating to listen to customers since they have the money that firms desire. And I think it's the customers are only the only natural resource for funding the operation. So customers are an important voice, not necessarily the only one, but it's an important voice here. So I started my talk around 4 topics. One being, so 4 topics, or 3 topics. Why do so many firms go out of business? I think it's worth thinking a little bit about. And the second one is, how can we link customer satisfaction and innovation to firm value? Because by the end of the day, if an innovation or an operation doesn't lead to firm value or increase, it's not worth the time and effort and money. And finally, how do we capture customers' voice? And you can show some of the method, the approach that we have created from our research, and now it's been implemented in 10 different countries. But I want to start out with an interesting quote by an interesting author, Ernest Hemingway, in the book The Sun Also Rises. There's a conversation between 2 gentlemen, and Bill asks him, how did you go bankrupt? Well, 2 ways, Mike said, gradually and then suddenly. I find the gradually very interesting from a research perspective. I mean, why is that firms gradually go bankrupt and when they're suddenly bankrupt, that's, well, let's pack it up and go home. But it's the process towards the suddenly that I find interesting. And I want to share a little bit of thinking about that, but also how we can then counter for that gradual phenomena and stay on track to be in the market. So the evidence of something is going on here over time is this average lifespan figure here from S&P 500 companies in the United States. So back in 1965, we could see that the average lifespan was about 33, 34 years. And then fast forward to 2025, 24, we're talking about 18 years of life cycle for a typical firm, S&P 500, as one of the larger ones. And if we move forward to 2029, we're thinking about, or it's the project is, or the forecast is about 17 years. So if we continue this, we will go bankrupt the day we start the company. So, and in my search for finding an explanation for this, because I don't think leaders are stupid or ignorant or lazy, but there must be a rational reason for this. So for the next 2 or 3 slides, I just want to share the rationale behind this phenomena that we need to conquer with innovation. But the beginning of the end, according to this book here that I strongly recommend for reading, is the occurs when successful firms fail because they continue to make the choices that drove their previous success. Basically, they're employing the same game plan under new conditions, hoping and praying that it will be successful this time too. Well, it ain't. So it's not because they're complacent or badly managed, but simply because they stay on course of an old game plan that worked so well previously, but not under the new conditions. And I can just exemplify this phenomena by this very, very known example here of BlackBerry on one side and iPhone on the other side. And as we might remember, back in 2000 thereabout, BlackBerry was the one cell phone or mobile phone with text messaging and emails that was absolutely the dominant brand in the marketplace. At the time, I was working in the United States in Maryland, at the University of Maryland. And I remember with inside what they call the Beltway in the hotspot of politics, it had a market share of close to 85%. So it's like a dominant thing. People were very proud of carrying it and using it and showing off, but it was a phenomenal machine for communicating and including also for mobile phoning. Then, of course, what happened in June 2007 was that Steve Jobs on stage as his traditional under the vignette, and there's one more thing, when he launched the iPhone 1 in June 2007. Now, the response from the gentleman to the right here, the MBA from Harvard, pictured in the film, in the movie, he said, that's a stupid mobile phone. It doesn't have buttons that they can push for printing text messages. The gentleman with the white hair was the technical genius. He said, oh, shit just happened. He realized that there's something with the new phone from Apple that they could not compete against. But the MBA guy said, let's just keep on pushing the way we've been pushing. So they kept on, and they were extremely successful all the way up to 2009, 2010, when the tsunami from iPhone came along. All the effects started accumulating over time. And what we're talking about here is the RIM company behind BlackBerry. They were a victim of path dependency, of component innovation, that is making better keyboards, as opposed to what came from Apple was an architectural innovation that materialized around 2009 and 10 when we realized this is not a cell phone, this is a platform for services and applications. And from then on, BlackBerry was just a sad story. So how can we explain this? I think there are four obvious ones. One is, of course, the cultural and technological legacy within the firms. The uncertainty of whether an event or technology is disruptive. Should leaders pay attention to this specific one? Why should Apple demand a space in a mobile phone area where they've never been before? Of course, the business model that we've been operating is optimized for producing current market offerings. So we fine-tuned for efficiency and quality. And of course, the CFO and the leaders are concerned about the replacement costs and the fear of cannibalizing existing profits. These are all four very valid reasons for why we see the conservatism within existing firms for how to handle or cope with the new incumbents coming into the industry. So the best thing that happens, or what happens, is that because they're not certain, they just stay on track and keep on doing what they've been doing. Disruption kicks in, the beginning of death starts to happen. So let's link customer satisfaction, the operation part of the company, with innovation, which is the future part of the company, to the financial implications of doing that. So what do we know from research? Let's show you some illustrations so we can even talk about it pedagogically. I'd like to start with the three sources for value for a firm that we know about, and this is from the literature on business model innovation. So it's the way we create value, it's the way we deliver value, and also the way we capture value. And we know that capture value is all about how we price the product. And it used to be the way, coming from cost and a little bit profit, and then we had a market price. Then we changed to value-based pricing. Then we started with the more competitive pricing. And now we're currently at dynamic pricing, as just as the innovations happening in that space there. To link operations and innovations to this simple model of how we create value in firms, or how we can create value, we have to think about the changes, the micro changes we make in operations to become more efficient, to improve quality, to deliver more efficiently, to capture value more effectively. And also parallel to this, and this is to me the new thing for leaders, parallel, not in a separate universe, but parallel under the same umbrella, we need to innovate. So we need to innovate in how we create value, we need to innovate how we deliver value, and we need to innovate in how we capture value. On the latter case, we can think of the car industry that have now totally changed from selling a car, slapping a price tag on it, and you own the car, it's yours, to now it's more subscription-based for all the services that you can have as add-ons for navigation, for security, for speed, for all the fancy lights, everything you can have in the car. Now the car industry makes more money on the extra services that they now customers can subscribe to than they make from just selling the car. So this is how we can think about it from the inside. And then, of course, the outside effects above the dotted red line is, of course, customer experience, customer satisfaction, and customer well-being. And in the inside of the firms, we talk about margins, productivity, and growth, all balanced with operations and innovations. This is a very pedagogical model. We've been testing it empirically, but we can read it from right to left. We start with a good thing, firm value, which we know is a function of customer equity. And we can define equity as the sum of the customer base, the financial value of the customer base. And we know that that is a function of each customer's lifetime value. When you start summarizing all customer lifetime values, you get to the customer equity, the financial value of the customer base. What we know that drives customer lifetime value is customer loyalty, the retention rate, and share of wallet. What drives these beautiful factors is, of course, satisfaction, which again is impacted by perceived quality. So starting from the left, how leaders allocate time, people, and money to various projects that is intended to improve quality. It could either by lifting quality, so thereby you can lift satisfaction, or you can reduce variance in quality. So these are very important dimensions. So either raise quality or reduce variance in quality. The effect is increased satisfaction, increased loyalty, increased lifetime, customer equity, and firm value. I call this the operation route of a company. The evidence of this is found in an article we published in MIT Sloan Management Review back in the days, just been documenting this. So you can have a look at it if you have the time and appetite for that. The second route, with things happening under the same umbrella in the same organization, is to have operations and innovations under the same umbrella. So this is where we see again how firms and leaders allocate time, people, and money for innovation projects that has the intention of improving perceived innovativeness in the eyes of customers. If a firm has an improvement in perceived innovativeness, we think, and we can document, that their perception of the firm's attractiveness in the market is increasing. And with that increase, there is an incentive for me to choose the company again and again and again, thereby linking it to loyalty, retention, share of wallet, and all the other beautiful factors to the right in the model here. So this is the everyday life of leaders, that you have to do operations, which is all about creating value for customers on current offer, and then introduce over time new solutions that updates current offering, and thereby keeping the firm attractive in the marketplace, and thereby offsetting going gradually bankrupt over time. So we can look at this in a study we did based on American data. And this is from the American Innovation Index and also from the American Customer Satisfaction Index, which is operated by, respectively, Fordham University in New York and University of Michigan, in Michigan. The question here was, which of these two factors, innovation or satisfaction, is the stronger driver of stock return for the firm? They both are, but at the given level of satisfaction, quality, the innovation route kicks in the stronger one. In fact, every 5-point increase in the American Innovation Index metric in this analysis was associated with $2.8 billion increase in shareholder wealth. So this is just overwhelming how we can document the effect. So the bottom line here, both of our operations and innovations collectively drive stock return. However, at the level of adequate quality, innovation kicks in as the stronger driver of stock return. So this is where the CEO and the CEO start sitting straight up in the chairs and listen and pay attention to innovation is not cool, it's strategic for the firm and how they can prosper financially. So how can we do these things and make them happen? Well, how can we capture customer voice in innovation? And this is where we come to the novel approach that we developed at the Norwegian School of Economics. So my point of departure when I sat down with my research team was that nations cannot be innovative. So ranking nations as more or less innovative was to me meaningless. But organizations can be if their customers perceive them as innovative. So again, if customers who are the recipient of the outcome from the firm perceive the firm to be innovative, then by definition, that firm is innovative. So the build-up of the logic of this approach is just illustrated here. So this is using the Norwegian Innovation Index as the model for this. So what we did, we have the Norwegian Innovation Index, which is we went to the Norwegian Bureau of Statistics, and we selected out how households spends their money. So we capture 80% of households' expenditures on different items and categories. This could be insurance, it could be mortgage, it could be traveling, it could be education, it could be car, it could be groceries, it could be anything that dominates the household budget. So then we have the industries. We have 20 industries all in all. For each industry, we pick companies which in sum have 70% market share within that industry. That gives us 90 companies that are important for the household's expenditures. For each company, we interview 300 respondents. They have to be current customers of a certain experience with the firm. 300 because it allows us to break down into segments. So each segment is a national representation of that cohort for the company. So we have the 100 for young, free, and simple, we call them. We have 100 for chaos in my life, and 100 for got my life back, meaning kids are out of the house. This addressed the idea that one innovation does not fit all. You have to tailor-make the innovation for a certain segment. And we just used where in your life are you as a reflection of changes in what's important to you. This means that we, over 1 year, collect 23,000 customer voices throughout the year during 4 quarters. The business model behind this is 3 parties. So there's this research, it's the data collection, and it's implementation. The research is this idea or this approach has now been copied by 10 leading business schools and universities around the world in 10 different countries. So we have the whole of Nordic, we have Spain, we have the Netherlands, we have the United States, we have Vietnam, we have Australia. So these are all working together with us under what we call the Innovation Index Coalition. So independently, we work on a research agenda to develop new insight into this. So we are researchers, we are not consultants. And the data is collected by using professional bureaus for doing this methodologies in a way that we can publish in academic journals. Then to take the findings and put them to work, we are aligned with a consulting firm of a certain reputation and standing in each country. So in Norway, we work together with KPMG. In other countries, they work with other companies or other consulting firms. But it has to be firms of a certain standard or certain quality and a certain access to leadership in the companies, because this is going to have impact the way companies work and operate. So the model as such has 2 parts. It's a prediction model that I'm showing you here. And again, we're linking that to the illustration in the previous slides, but it builds on the idea that perceived innovativeness as perceived by customers has a positive correlation with how attractive I find or not the current company. And that has an impact on my decisions, which could lead to an increase or decrease in customer loyalty, customer retention rate, or share of wallet, all impacting, by the end of the day, a firm value. So this, again, like a conceptual model, we would know that we think that changes in perceived innovativeness will lead to attractiveness, will lead to loyalty, and changes in the firm value over time. The evidence of this theory holding water is found here. This is a scatter plot where we, on the X to the left, have perceived innovativeness, and on the y-axis, we have perceived attractiveness. The scatter plot here, and with a red dotted line, which is the regression line, just indicates that the strong positive correlation between the 2 constructs, the 2 phenomena. So when you increase perceived innovativeness, we can see that you also have a correlated increase in perceived attractiveness. To the right, we have the one step forward, where a perceived attractiveness, as you can see, is positively correlated with an increase in customer loyalty, retention, share of wallet, etc., etc. So again, the theory holds water. We see the same thing happening in all 10 countries, in all markets, in all segments. So we're pretty confident about that this correlation is not saying causation, but correlation exists, and we can trust it. Managers buying into this, or leaders buying into this, they want to know, which button should I push? Where should I allocate time, people, and money to improve perceived innovativeness? So we need to have the diagnostic part, which is here to the left in the model. So we interviewed tons of people of different ages and different religions and origins, et cetera, and we ended up with 4 areas that customers can perceive changes in. If I use Starbucks as an example, just to walk through, the value proposition is all about drinks being served and food being served, the nuts and bolts of the Starbucks value proposition. Value delivery is all about the barista, the app, and the website. I mean, how you deliver services to your customer. The relationship experience is all about, do you remember my name? Do you pick up on my preferences? Do you personalize the experience for me based on our transaction history over time? Interaction space is the physical layout of the Starbucks restaurant, but also the layout, the aesthetics of the layout of the app and the web pages. So both analog and digital spaces for where we interact with customers. Each of these areas has a battery of questions. We can tap into these phenomena, where we again pinpoint which one of them is the stronger driver of perceived innovativeness. CFOs and CEOs wants to, within limited budget, allocate to areas that are most important for driving perceived innovativeness. And this is where correlation coefficients comes in between 0 and 1. The closer to 1, the more important that phenomena is for the customer to drive perceived innovativeness. And you can see here the evidence again from the American Innovation Index, operated by Fordham University in New York, that firms that have a high score on perceived innovativeness, the x-axis, has correlated with an abnormal return on their stock. As you can see, Apple, by most considered as very innovative company, has the highest rating on the American Innovation Index, and also picks up a fairly high abnormal return on their stock. And again, the lower ones, Expedia and Priceline, has a negative return on their stock because they're not perceived as very innovative and attractive by the customers. So to summarize, I have 6 bullets that I want to leave you with. The first one is that despite leaders planning for eternity, firms on average go out of business after 18 years. The reason might be that leaders are not sure how to respond to incumbents or external shocks. So they don't feel comfortable how to respond, thereby they do not respond, and they hope and pray that it will all go away. The primary reasons are legacy, the history of the firm, the culture of the firm, and the technology of the firm, which leads to path dependency. In Germany, they know how to make cars, diesel cars, and they will make them even more efficient every year, thereby lost to Tesla. And lack of innovation. If you only improve quality, you become gradually irrelevant to the firm, to the customers. So you lose attractiveness and thereby drop behind in competition. And satisfaction and innovativeness drive for value. It's not either or, it's both. But at a certain level of satisfaction, the innovativeness kicks in as the key driver of firm value. So we're talking about not maximizing satisfaction, but finding the adequate level of satisfaction. But we're looking at relative attractiveness. That means you only have to be better than competition in the eyes of customers, and thereby you are, by definition, more attractive. And innovative firms are more attractive and have a higher stock return. So do firms that are socially innovative, meaning they are good neighbors, they do good things to the society in a way where they also make money. And finally, the innovation index approach is like a sniper rifle on return on innovation when allocating finite innovation resources is critical to the firm. So you need to know where to put your money to maximize the return on perceived innovativeness that drives attractiveness, that drives customer loyalty. I'll leave you with the following slide. Quality is a ticket to play. Innovation is a ticket to stay. And if you want to know more about this, please contact me on this email address, and I'm happy to share more details on this approach to how to capture customer voice in innovation work. On that, I'll leave it back to you.
Tor, thank you very much. What a great presentation, lots of insights. Let us first run a video, a voice from our sponsors, and then we'll come back with Q&A.
Hi, my name is Hitendra Patel.
Problems with some...
I represent the Global Innovation Management Institute. We are honored to be part of the Global Council for Innovation Organizations because we are very excited about the opportunity of spreading innovation globally through certifications and standards. This council that we have put together will allow us to share best practices, exchange ideas between universities, between governments, between companies, between different geographies. It is the exchange of these ideas and this ecosystem that we are building that will help us close the gap and democratize innovation everywhere and improve the quality of life of every human on this planet.
Thank you. Tor, that was great. And I'm going to make sure Spotlight is also there. So both of us will be spotlighted. Can you please spotlight both Tor and myself, please? Thank you. Tor, well, in 1999, my colleague Ron Jones wrote a book called The Innovation Premium. And that book came out after the Little. And the book essentially was based on research that Wall Street had asked after the Little to validate that R&D is the reason why a company will do well in the future. And we did the research, and again, we found that data was not correct. R&D was no indicator of a company's future success. So then we started doing more research, because that's what we wanted to find out, because after the Little was famous for R&D innovation consulting. So when the research was completed, we came out with the following conclusions. There were 4 premiums that innovative companies were benefiting from. The first one was they were attracting the best customers because they were the brand to buy. And that brand to buy was because embedded in brand was the word innovation. The brand equity had a strong component of innovation inside there. And so that was one component. The second thing we found was employees wanted to work for innovative companies also. And there was another premium given. The employees would select companies to work for and even take a lower salary sometimes. But the smartest and the brightest would show up into those organizations because they believe these companies would do very well in the future. And they would give you a chance to grow and everything else. And then the third premium was suppliers. Suppliers were choosing also to come to these companies because they felt that innovative companies were more open and more collaborative to consider what was really creative, and they would work with the engineers versus purchasing. As simple as that. Instead of going to purchasing, you would go to actually the part of the value chain to produce the thing, created the things. And ultimately, all of that came down to the guys in Wall Street. When Wall Street people were asked, what companies do you invest in? They repeatedly said companies which were innovative. Now, behind each one of the things, what I like what you have done is you've actually quantified the customer dimension. You've really quantified that. And that has been the hardest thing in general, is to quantify what are hypotheses and directional hypotheses that we have. But you don't have the data to support it. And then you have double click on that into the customer component even further. So 2 things. One, would love to see your research expand into the supplier side also, as well as into the employee side, as well as on the investor side. And now perhaps as a framework, it could be a one-stop shop for everything. And then that sniper thing that you talk about would come up. But I love what you said or what you've done. So let's go back, and you can comment about what I just said. But the question on the customer side is, customers do buy things for the present. And often they are unaware of what they might need in the future because they have no idea, especially the cell phone as an example, when consumers were asked, would you use a cell phone? And I was at Motorola at that time.
I think we lost the connection with Hitsendra.
Well,
Is
he
that correct?
froze up.
Your research in terms of saying, listening to the customer will give us a midterm success or a long-term success?
Yeah. Well, that is it's a very relevant question, and it's something we need to think about carefully, so because this is a paradox. Sometimes in marketing, we hear that you need to be customer-centric. Well, I think that's a first-class ticket to bankruptcy. So again, finding this, but behind customer centricity, I think also lies a deep understanding for long-term thinking. Where are the trends? And I personally spend a lot of time thinking about firms as a tool for society to solve complex problems. I think firms are, if you put our heads on as prime ministers of any company or any country, I would like them to think of the industry, private companies, as the best tool for solving problems if they can make a profit on it at the same time. But of course, it has to be irregular, but in controlling one way. But I think firms as an instrument are experts at solving problems, not only for their own market share, but also for society, while also making a profit. So the latest work we just published now in Journal of Marketing was social profit orientation as a guiding star or a North Pole star for how leaders should be thinking about innovation. So again, balancing the short-term perspective of making customers happy with the long-term perspective of keeping the company within the industry, you're not gradually going bankrupt. So I think if you have this North Pole vision of how can our company do something good while also making money on that doing good, so that's where I see the future, and where you can probably balance what you're so elegantly ask about. I mean, the short-term perspective with the long-term perspective. And you're absolutely right. We know that Steve Jobs at Apple was known for don't ever ask customers; they don't know what they need, a new iPhone or all the stuff there, or a Ford comment about a new horse in back of the behind the car or whatever it was. But so you're right. But at a certain timeline, I think for me, it might be right or wrong, but within a 3 years time frame, you can do things that would make a difference for customers in their life, everyday life. In the more 3 to 5 years time span, you need to look more carefully of the long-term trends. For example, what does it mean when we have an aging societies around the planet? What does it mean when the birth rates go down below sustainability levels of each nation? So we have, for example, in my country, we have a reproduction rate of 1.5, which is way below 2.1, and other countries have much worse than this. So how can our company, through our innovations, address these kind of issues and challenges that follows with a older generation and with fewer people being born, implication for labor, implication for society, for welfare state, for all those things here. So I think that could be the guidance for the North Pole thinking, while at the same time making money for today. Because if you're not profitable today, you won't be able to fund for tomorrow.
Absolutely. Tor, I like that. One of the challenges, and I'll give a challenge that we were asked to work on, was one of those cruise ships that they were going to launch. And a cruise ship lasts almost 30 years
Yes.
before you actually dismantle it. And therefore, the customers in the last 10 years of this cruise ship are going to be perhaps the Gen Zs.
Yeah.
But the Gen Zs have never even imagined using a cruise ship because that's the most boring, dull thing on the planet for them. And the technology they want to use today, they're already using it, augmented reality and all the devices of technology and all that. And so to design this thing 20 years into the future, where we don't even know what this Gen Zs will be when they're baby boomer age, and how they will interact with technology of that future, and intersect all of that. Have you thought about in your sniper shot, short term, I think you nail it. Midterm is probably harder, but this is where, how do we get the midterm and the long term human customer needs and the solutions of technology that will be made available?
Yeah. And again, an excellent question, and thank you for raising it and forcing me to think about it on the spot here. I think where I probably can find some support for my thinking would be combining design thinking with Clayton Christensen's job to be done suggestion, as he had in his latest book, Competing Against Luck. Because if you start getting to what is the job customers wants to get done, and truly narrow that down, that need will never go away, but you just find different ways of being addressed. So it might start out with, so this very simple thing, but so if you can think about that into the future, and this is where technology, of course, makes it very hard to think because it's changing and so rapidly, but in a high asset thing like a cruise ship, I mean, you're stuck with that asset for the next 30, 40, 50 years. And how can you then create it such that it's flexible? So you can tap into the changes in the jobs to be done. So it might be you and me going off on a cruise ship to enjoy our gin and tonic while reading poems for each other, to bear where you more want to have a party, you want to have jazz, you want to have, entertainment or adult education. So again, how can you build the flexibility into it so you can tap into the changes in the jobs to be done over time? And I think it's like MIT. I don't think they have any walls in that institution because they want to remove all the walls to to cover the needs they have for the future way of teaching or topics to be taught, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think the answer is, what is the underlying job to be done? How can you build in flexibility into this thing here? And then stay relevant on those topics. And again, when you reach the end of the runway, cut your losses.
Yeah. So Tor, you're hitting on the right things. We need to have future foresight and visibility to what could be the future. And it could be scenarios. It could be this or that. So you got to have flexibility built into that. That word flexibility is key now. We got to take it to the leader of an organization. That's where the flexibility will be put as a muscle in the organization. So what's been your experience? And I'll just basically give a little story again and then emphasize why this is important. When Jack Welch was about to resign at GE, 4 people put their hats in to become CEOs.
Yep.
And GE was well known for its Six Sigma practices. Very good, solid Six Sigma practice about quality control. And one guy got the job, Jeff Immelt, and the other 3 who put their hats in had to leave the company, and they already had jobs in other companies. One went to Motorola, one went to Home Depot, and one went to 3M. And very quickly they put in practice the first part, quality, and they emphasized quality completely and cut innovation. And as a result of it, they showed incredible results for the first 2 years.
Yes.
Because now you don't have the expenses of innovation and creativity, and none of that was happening. And then by year number 3, each one of them was about 55 to 56 years of age. They were retiring. They took the parachute and left and destroyed or gutted out 3 of the greatest American institutions, Motorola, 3M, and this Home Depot company. How do we build or force in this type of structured thinking that you have to protect the present and create the future?
Yes.
In our CEOs, and what have you seen in your methodology to lock that in?
Again, a wonderful question. And this time I spent some time thinking about it. So this time I'm I think this is the break from Milton Friedman's doctrine of shareholders first, that he so elegantly put forth in this New York Times article in 1963. The purpose of a firm is to make a profit. And I think Jack Welch was a victim of that thinking, or the best in class to implement that thinking, and his ruthlessness in pursuing profit on the cost of breaking down labor unions, cutting down costs, laying off people, ruining villages, etc., generated tremendous predictability and of profitability in GE over time. And when he came across this idea of creating a bank, well, it became even more turbocharged profit generator with a huge predictability. Well, as she elegantly points out, it was a house of cards. But his apprentices, who had all been attending Jack Welch Academy up in the hills in New York, upstate New York, had all been brainwashed with the same idea. The way to profitability is by cutting costs, lean, mean, factory machine. And which is a logic that makes sense at the time. But time is changing. So, and we saw this way of thinking come to an end on August the 19th, 2019, when the Business Council in the United States came together. This is S&P 500 CEOs, and said the policy now for business is not the shareholder first doctrine, it's the stakeholder doctrine. And suddenly we saw this. To me, it was welcome after about 14 years after Europe in the American way of thinking. So now we see we're moving from this shareholder first and leaving the crumbles to the employees and society. And now it's a stakeholder. And this is where I think we also see where this North Star logic of social profit orientation and innovation in that light. So I like to use the word of modern companies. Our leaders are those who see themselves and their organization as a good neighbor. So we innovate and we find solutions for being attractive in the market while also solving problems that are related to the macroeconomics of that society, being inclusion, being equality, being sustainable growth, or all those things. But that's where the true cohort and the smart cohort of leaders will come for in the future. And innovation will be one way of getting there. There is one eminent researcher at Oxford, King's College, that I've totally fallen in love with, Daniel Susskind. He started out with working on the labor side of AI, and now he came up with a book, Growth. I absolutely find the link between what we're talking about now and his way of thinking of sustainable growth. The only way of getting there is through research, innovation, with an eye to the need of society. This is what we need. We all need economic growth. The other option is not an option. We cannot accept stagnation or decline, but it has to be through innovations that are sustainable, meaning we don't burn up the planet, but we need to make a profit in the process.
Tor, this is great. I love what you're saying, and I'm a believer of protecting the present, creating the future, and doing it in a way that makes the planet better, society better, and everything else simultaneously. So the more we make profit, the better everything else should also become. Right? I buy into that. But the challenge we are facing in general is we needed an S&P organization to impose that value onto the CEOs.
Yes.
Those CEOs are you and me, individuals who are optimizing their personal lives, optimizing their desire to get that island or swimming pool or whatever it is, and greed plays into this thing also, and people make choices, which is part of our capitalism, right? So in that, my question comes down to, we got a political issue going on in the United States, and ESG may become part of the backwater. Inclusion becomes less important right now if one party wins over the other party, because one party is trying to do long term, the other one's very focused on the near term. And the whole culture changes very quickly. So is it business school's role? Is it McKinsey and BCG's role? Whose role? Is it S&P 500's role, or is it government's role to really put in place a accounting system, and I'm going to go back to accounting system now,
Yeah.
saying instead of a balance sheet, income statement, and a cash flow statement, and a letter from the CEO, should there also be another document which says what is the pipeline of future investments you've made to create a sustained future, which is under the pillar of, as you said, ESG, or people power, or all stakeholders.
Yeah.
Is it tight?
I think it's, I just want to steal a quote from one of the CEOs in an insurance company here in Norway. They are selling it like it's an investment pension fund. And he said, if there's not a future where we can enjoy our pension, then there's no reason for why we should operate. So there needs to be a market in the future. You know, it's like the Titanic, if you think differently. You know, we are drinking the last drop of champagne while the sink is sinking. So, you know, if we don't take that into consideration in our thinking as leaders, independent of capitalism or a moderated, more social democratic version of it, I think we're like Titanic. We're going down drunk on beautiful champagne. There's no future. And so again, to get to that realization, you have to see that if I make an investment in social innovations, ESGs, not only green, but you know, all like equality, inclusion, all these things here. If I don't do it, I will get out of tune, out of the value compass with my target audience, customers, or other stakeholders to my company. So, and our documentation is that we see a strong correlation in innovation projects that are socially driven, you know, including ESG, the green part of ESG, but also the fact that you are perceived as a good neighbor. Your company, through its innovations, are contributing to the development of society. And by that, I mean developing the democracy, developing our laws, developing our tax system that it's fair. It doesn't, you know, all those things. And then we see a strong correlation between firms that are perceived as socially innovative and strong shareholder return. So again, the numbers needs to come to the firm that it makes sense. It's not only a requirement from government, those shall go to jail if you don't do that, but you can see this makes sense profitably. So when we make these investments, we will see it in our stock and the return to our shareholders. But again, I also think that this is where leaders, and in a sense, there is a change in this value compass among leaders. We saw that when Russia invaded Ukraine. So many companies left the company immediately, leaving tons of assets behind because it was the right thing to do. The customers expected it, the employees expected it, the shareholders expected it. Not only their families expected it. And we see it now also in increasing voices, what's going on in the Middle East. I mean, companies start responding to this, you know, because what's the right or wrong. So again, I see a growing inclusion of this moral compass in the way leaders think and how they allocate time, people, and money into projects that take care of the top line and the bottom line while also doing good for society. And I'm really optimistic on this. But I'm also want to say that personally, I think we should, as Europeans, or stop being so dependent on the North American literature of how to run companies. I think it's a reason why we should look to the Nordic. Look to Nordic. I think this model for society, how we cooperate between private and public sector, the citizens with the government, the trust element, is something to be copied by other countries, and specifically the United States.
Bravo, Tor. For the audience, guys, this is a strong message. I mean, the message says that we have been very US-centric or North American-centric in our business school, management sciences. There are new ways to do business that are evolving around the world. And whether they are in the Nordic areas where we see some really amazing things coming out, but across the globe, keep your eyes open, be open to other best practices, and don't assume that there's only one source of this intelligence on excellence.
I will say though that the nice thing about the US system is it's designed for cutthroat competition. And they are the only nation who gives us AI and large language models and all the innovations. They are designed for that. The social democratic business model for society in Europe will probably tell us that it's better to use technology to create value than invent technology. So again, the way we think about it, and specifically in my country, where it's a heavily social, democratic and welfare state, my advice to the Minister of Industry is that those shall not spend much money on developing technology. We can buy that off the shelf on software, but we should put our brains to work to capture the economic value of the technology.
We are almost out of time. I want to hit one more question. And this is a question of the mindset of what's an expense and what's an investment. Innovation requires you to have a mindset that you're investing and don't see that money you're spending as an expense, and therefore it hurts your profit today, and therefore you've lost it. But you are actually investing for growth, investing for more profit. But that mindset is only available if you have the ability to have investment dollars. So poor companies, poor countries struggle to really have a plan for the future, while more wealthier countries and companies also can actually plan for a longer term thinking. Any thoughts on that as a guidance to the audience over here? Because our clients are global, and our audience is global too.
Yeah, again, a very relevant question. You know, the rich stay rich, the poor stay poor, as the Canadian singer-songwriter Leonard Cohen said in one of his songs. One of the misunderstandings I often interpret when I listen to CEOs is that think of innovation as being the big moonshots. We're going to revolutionize the world. You will be amazed by how much you can do on a limited budget. You know, to me, it was an aha, it was an epiphany when I realized that for customers, it's all very often the small trivial things that remove some stones in their shoes and makes their life better. So it doesn't have to be the new rocket ships or the SpaceX or the new whatever. It can only be very small. So when you're on a tight budget, look for the low-hanging fruits, which you can find when you use the approach that we just went through on the Innovation Index. You can see what's important to me in the various segments and go for the low-hanging fruits, and you will be rewarded by being more attractive in the marketplace, and you increase your share of wallet, and suddenly the sun starts shining on you, and money will come from heaven.
Tor, amazing ideas, amazing information, amazing intelligence, but more than that, amazing insights. So thank you very much.
Amazing conversation with you, and thank you so much.
I enjoyed it very much also. With that, we have come to an end to our monthly webinar for the Global Council for Innovation or Innovative Organizations. We'll be back again a month from now with another great speaker. Today, you heard great ideas about innovation and its importance, and some key messages from whether it's social impact, part of your strategy, whether it's the fact that it's about customer-centric and customer views, and linking all of that together, that helping customers, being innovative together increases the share price. Lots of great ideas in what was presented today. Please reach out to Tor and Andreassen. He's available for discussions, available for speeches and talks around the world. With that, tune in next month. Thank you very much, everybody. Together we can.
Thank you.